I realize not having a boss and me being my boss, like, I don't know if I would trade that. I don't know how much money you'd have to pay me to trade for you to be my boss. Yeah. So I have a happy place in my mind. That happy place usually involves three things. If three things are going on in my life, then shit's good.
Okay.
If I have a cigar, if I have good espresso at home, right? And if I'm eating a steak. Is it real or is it not real? I don't know. But the astrologers think it's real. They're not charlatans. You know what I mean? They're not out to deceive you.
So, Andre, what's new since we last talked?
Man, this is, I got to say this again. This is a really good cigar.
Yeah, smooth.
Yeah, so nice. There's something about just a good cigar, good people, and then having a good conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you guys found that, so you guys have been doing the podcast now for a while, have you found that the conversation is better with a cigar or with alcohol?
Cigar, by far.
Cigar.
Yeah, for sure.
We really haven't done a whole lot with alcohol. I think there might have been
guest drink.
We've had guest drink, and I wasn't a huge fan necessarily on how they turned out. Yeah.
What I found is that it translates very bad to someone who's sober and listening and their stuff. It starts turning into like a bar conversation. You pick up on the slurs a little bit more, and the chain of thought is not quite as smooth. The cigars seem to make the conversation more creative and faster without degrading the quality.
It's the nicotine.
I think so.
The testosterone booster too, apparently. Allegedly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the excuse.
You believe it.
Hey, you know what? I do notice a difference. Like, so the other day I was at home chilling, and I was like, you know what? I normally don't smoke a cigar a couple of times a week. Like a couple of times a week I'm going to smoke a cigar, but I was like, you know what? I just want to smoke a cigar. So I have a happy place in my mind. That happy place usually involves three things. If three things are going on in my life, then shit's good.
Okay.
If I have a cigar, if I have good espresso at home, right? And if I'm eating a steak.
Yeah.
So if I could eat a steak, I have a good cigar, and I have a good espresso, then I know life is good. When one of those three things are missing, I know it's like, should I need to make money or like something's off. And, there's a glitch in the matrix if one of those is off. But if all those three things exist in my life, then I know life is good. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Do you like pairing cigars with coffee? I know a lot of people are like whiskey, bourbon, sometimes tequila. You like it with coffee?
So yes, both, right? So sometimes I will, if I'm having a cigar for breakfast and I have an espresso machine at home and I have my, if I'm having an espresso or whatever, I'm going to have my espresso and a cigar early in the morning, but later in the evening, maybe I'm going to have an old fashioned or some tequila or, I mean, the other day I was drinking, I think I was drinking Hennessy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was drinking some Hennessy with my cigar. But yeah, look, as I told someone the other day, I gifted them a cigar. And they're like, what should I drink? I was like, I don't care. Hawaiian Punch. Enjoy the cigar. Just like, as long as you're smoking the cigar and you're enjoying it and you're relaxing and you're around good people. I'm not a snob where it's like, you can only drink this. I mean, sure, for the cigar aficionado, they are going to notice. Like, they're going to be more particular. But for the lay person, it's my first cigar.
Yeah.
Dude, Hawaiian Punch is... You're fine. You're fine. It's Hawaiian Punch. Like, you can do what you want. It's cigar number one. When you become advanced, training wheels off, then maybe don't drink Kool-Aid with it. But.
Yeah.
Cigars are, to me, they're more of a social thing. Smoking it by myself is okay. If I'm by myself, I'll tend to just use the Zen pouches or nicotine breath mints.
Yeah.
I even actually have an old corn cob pipe that I got to play around with just raw tobacco.
Oh, nice.
And it's kind of not as harsh on my gums and mouth as a cigar that I found.
Do you remember, like, you could go to the mall? I mean, I haven't been to the mall in forever, right? But back in the day, you used to be able to go to the mall, and they would have these tobacco shops. Right? You'd walk by and it would smell good. You'd walk by the tobacco shops. I used to love it because you'd walk by and I was like, man, I want to go in there. And I wasn't allowed to go in there. But I used to love just kind of lingering at the mall or in front of the tobacco shops because they'd have the pipes. It's like, I think that's where the appreciation for cigars came from, was just always wanting to go into the mall, into that tobacco shop just to smell. Well, that was it. I just wanted to smell it because I have a thing for smells. By the way, have you heard this before? That certain people can smell ants and certain people can't?
No, never.
Can smell ants?
Yeah.
I
have not.
Certainly can't smell ants.
No, me neither. Explain.
So I can smell ants, and
What do
so
they smell like?
they smell like ants. It's hard to explain, but it's like, well, that's an ant. So like sometimes I'll be like, oh, do you guys smell those ants? And people. So the other day it came up, and someone said, wait, you could smell ants? You have this rare gene? I was like, wait a minute, it's a rare thing, and they explained to me that apparently it's a rare gene that certain people have that you could smell ants, and I didn't know that because I thought everyone could smell ants. It's kind of like some people can taste cilantro and it tastes like soap.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Right? So I could smell ants. I have this, I have, strong olfactory senses. And I have this addiction for smells. I think that's probably why I was a chef. I could smell food. I used to be able to smell things and be like, it has this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And I like the, like I said, I like the smell of the cigar shop. I could smell ants. I think I probably have a cologne addiction. I probably wear too much, right? But people get annoyed with me. Sometimes I'll be like sniffing them and they're like, what are you doing? I was like, you kind of stink. And like,
Yeah.
you can smell me. I was like, yeah, I can. I got a really good smell, sense of smell. Like you need to take a shower or whatever. But
That's always my biggest fear is that I smell bad, but I can't smell myself.
Yeah, I had that fear too. But I'm a big cologne guy too. Like
Yeah.
I like expensive colognes, and my brothers never understood it. They buy the cheap like $10, $15, $20 bottle of colognes. I like the good stuff. I like Creeds. Let's see. Creeds are like my go-to. There's a few brands that I can't even pronounce. They're French that I like to get. But I've had the same thing happen in the opposite way that I think I wear too much sometimes too. And yeah, sometimes it'll be a little harsh on them.
I like cologne. I mean, at one point, I think I had like 20 or so Tom Ford colognes.
Wow.
Tom Ford, I can't think of that.
So like
can't
tobacco vanille. He has a lot. He had one called Rose Prick. He had one called Lost Cherry. He had another. What was it? Bitter Peach. There was one that was like Fucking Fabulous was another one that he had. They're all really, really good colognes. And then a French one that I like is from a brand called Diptyque. Diptyque. And they have, I think the one I have, I know is like fig and something. I don't remember what it is. But when I was young, I used to like, I was like in high school, wanted to pick up girls or something. I was like wearing Polo or Cool Water.
Yeah.
Or another one I had was like Jupe. I don't know if you guys remember those. Old Spice is like what my dad used to wear.
I've never been into cologne that much.
Really?
I don't even know.
Yeah,
I just
I love
have a few that smell differently and just roll with that.
I don't like going with like the huge popular ones because I don't want to feel like I'm hopping on a bandwagon. So I love to find like the ones that a lot of people don't know the name of.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of like sound mysterious or whatever whenever I'm doing it. But I do like Dior Sauvage.
Yeah.
That's a good one that I don't think you can ever go wrong with.
I think at one point I had like a $5,000 cologne collection.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no bullshit. And it's and at some point I'm like, because I also have OCD and we've talked about this on the last podcast, it's like I have to finish them.
Yeah.
Like, it's like I have to finish the bottle. Because if not, I feel like I don't know. It's like I bought it. I have to, like when you buy a book, it's like, well, I have to read the book. I bought it. I started reading page 1, even if I don't like it. You got to finish the book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you rotate your senses throughout your sense? I don't know. I guess depending on what you're going to, or whenever you start a bottle, do you finish that bottle? Or I kind of rotated depending on the event that I'm going to, the time of day maybe that I'm going to it, the season of the year.
Yeah.
I kind of rotate my stuff based on that. Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, so the main one that I use most often as far as cologne goes is I use the Tom Ford Tobacco Vanilla. It's like the James Bond cologne, right? It's Daniel Craig James Bond cologne.
Yeah.
And that one is like the one I got the most compliments on. And also people started to associate me with that cologne. So like when I'd walk into the room, they'd be like, oh, Andre must be here.
Yeah,
Like,
I've heard it's actually behooves you to kind of stay in the same
yes.
realm of cologne, so they kind of attach a scent to you.
Yes.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So the ones that there was like 2 or 3 that I really like. And one is the, like I said, the Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille. There's another one titled or called Oud Mineral, which I really like. And then I have another one called Noir de Noir from Tom Ford. Those are like the 3 that I really like the most. But it's like, for the most part, if I'm like feeling like a G, it's going to be Tobacco Vanille. Every other day is like, well, if no one's coming over, I'm going to spray the Rose Prick one. Smell like flowers.
Gosh, what was it? The one that I got the most compliments on. It's not a super expensive bottle. I want to say it's like 70 or 80. And Patek or Patek Miason Blue. It's the one that I got the most compliments on.
Interesting.
And it's the one that I use the most of because there was a part of me that wanted to do what you said, like associate myself with a certain scent.
Yep.
But then I got all these other different colognes that I loved, and I was like, nah, we're just going to rotate them. We're just going to rotate them. But maybe I just need to go back to using just one.
Yeah, you should. By the way, I just wrote a book.
What'd you write?
What you did?
So I just the book came out like 2 weeks ago, and the audio book just came out today. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's called Bad Cooks Everywhere, and it's my first fiction book.
Fiction.
That's
Fiction.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
What's the premise?
The premise of the book is this young kid right out of culinary school, and he has which it's like the story of every single chef, like young on fire. Someone notices that you have a big ego. In this case, in the book, it's a culinary instructor, and it's like, oh, you think you're hot shit? Go work at this restaurant where they are hot shit, and then realizes that the real world is not what they thought, and so they keep going from job to job. Because it's hard. Every time it gets hard, this person leaves. And what they discover, and this is kind of the title, right? It's Bad Cooks Everywhere. It's a little chick hatching from an egg, and there's a bunch of vipers around it. It's like,
Yeah.
right? It's the allegory of like a little chick lost, surrounded by snakes. And it's like wherever you go, there's bad cooks in every kitchen, assholes in every kitchen. There's someone that's doesn't like you in every kitchen. I mean, it's life, right?
Right.
And as the book progresses, the person realizes that the shit that they were getting early on in their career started to diminish later on in their career when they got good. So a lot of people talk about the culinary world. Oh, it's very hard. It's really hard at the beginning when you don't know what you're doing. But as you know what you're doing, it does get easier, as with everything. And so they associate it's all bad because of my first year of experience when I didn't know anything. And what's really difficult about the world of chefs is in your first year of cooking, you could be totally green right out of culinary school. And culinary school prepares you to an extent, but it doesn't prepare you for restaurant work. You have knife skills, but you don't have pace and intensity, right? It's like in the fight world, it's like I know how to jab and kick, but I've never sparred, right? And it's like, okay, now you're going to go spar. And so it's just a different pace when you get into a restaurant because you have these skills, but you haven't put them together yet. And so a 0-year cook on zero is working next to a 5-year cook, a 10-year cook, and a 20-year cook who have no patience for you because they just want to get the job done. They don't feel like teaching you. And so it's really hard the first few years. But what's interesting about the culinary world, and I mean, you can probably see how similar this is to the fight world, is that after about 5 years, everyone's kind of the same. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 10 years experience or 5 years experience, they're roughly pretty good. Like, you're not going to say, oh, I want a 10-year only cooks or 5-year only cooks, like, or a 15-year only cook. After about 5 years, everyone has the requisite skills to execute a successful restaurant service. And there's not much of a difference between those varying degrees of experience. But the 1-year cook is very different from a 5-year cook.
Yeah.
So
Steep learning curve.
yeah. Steep learning curve, and it really plateaus out.
Well, so what separates the last, after that 5-year mark, the last 10% between acceptable to great, or is it natural ability?
There's a creative process. So some people have innate creativity as a chef. Like they're curious. They're looking at things. They're wanting to create. They're wanting to express themselves. So that's part of it. Another aspect that's not discussed enough in the culinary world is there's a leadership aspect. So just because you're a really good cook doesn't necessarily mean you could lead a team. So if you spent the majority of your career only focusing on making sure that it's pots, pans, knives, food, and then all of a sudden now you got to lead 5 people and you got to order and you got to manage and discipline and market yourself. It's just different things that you weren't prepared for. So normally where you start to see the separation and the breakaway chefs is they've started to really focus on 2 things really. It's the ability to find their own identity as a chef and create that creative process, or the leadership aspect, and they know how to manage people and lead and organize. Where everyone else is just focused on just cooking, these people that become exceptional focus on those other 2 things. And then, of course, there's the elite of the elite who have something different than just the creativity and the leadership. They have this inner drive and this want to be excellent, and this fearlessness to take risks and be okay with not being the best as long as it makes them better. And they have this idea of compounding returns 1% every day, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Do you find that like new chefs have less focus when they work than 10, 20 years ago?
So you mean new as in today's world of chefs? I think they have different priorities. I don't know if it's a different focus because it's hard to not be focused when you're in the kitchen because usually they don't allow you to have your cell phones. So you're, no phones, it's quiet. A lot of kitchens are no music, no radios. Some kitchens have music. But it's an intense environment. It's a lot. There's a lot going on, so it's hard to not be present. I think the understanding of what it is different now, like what the expectation is. So, and in today aren't necessarily coming into the culinary world to become chefs. They're just kind of like, I'm still trying to figure out my life. I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
Where when I was coming up as a chef, it's like I wanted nothing more. This is the only option I had. I couldn't, I went to culinary school, or maybe you were an immigrant and you have no other, or you're an ex-convict or something like that. Like, this is the only job that'll hire me. So there was no other options. Where I think nowadays, a lot of the people that are in the culinary world do have a choice. They have a choice to be a chef or anything else. I was thinking about this the other day too. Actually, I was thinking about this today. Is one of the things that was interesting during the pandemic is when everyone got laid off, everyone had to figure out something else. Maybe they became an Uber driver or Lyft, or they started their own side hustle, whatever the case may be. But a lot of people needed to find a second source of income until their job brought them back.
Yeah.
Right. And even though I decided to retire from being a chef shortly after that, I'm still in the chef world, but I'm not employed by anyone. I'm employed by myself. Even though I decided to do that afterwards, I realized not having a boss and me being my boss, I don't know if I would trade that. I don't know how much money you'd have to pay me to trade for you to be my boss.
Yeah.
Like, I love not anyone telling me what to do. I love answering to myself. I love being responsible for, am I going to make enough money this month? Like, that's all on me.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people discovered that during that time. And I think that's what made it very interesting, is because when you were laid off and then you came back, you realized a very uncomfortable truth, is that these companies, these employers, these restaurants, these businesses were not loyal to you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so once you realize that, that's when the game changed.
Yeah,
because
your
now,
sense of safety never goes back.
yeah. And it's like, wait, you cheated on me? You might cheat on me again.
Yeah.
Right? So I might also have a wandering eye.
Right. And that's not even just for the culinary world. That goes for everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, in everything. Like, you realize that you're disposable. And it made people really wake up and start thinking, I feel like, about, like, okay, well, if I'm so disposable, why can't I just leave and do what I want to do instead?
We're in a cultural shift where everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Especially if you do anything online. Everybody wants to be their own boss. And there's so many that can't work as a society. Like, there has to be workers and underlings. And I think they'll always be there, but we're seeing not a lot of people going with the mentality of, I'm going to be a career bricklayer. I'm going to be a career chef. A lot of it's, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Or a lot of it digital money too.
I think a lot of it is that people just aren't as committed to one thing now.
Yeah.
I think because of maybe the internet and everything that is available to people now, they just refuse to totally commit to one thing. They always in the back of their mind have like something else that they want to try, and they refuse to just commit to this one, being a chef, being a fighter, whatever it is that you want to do. I feel like people just have a hard time committing now.
I would advise people, like, if you are, and because my audience is typically chefs, if you are a chef, have a side hustle. Like, focus on your brand, focus on your social media, because there's going to come a day when you might need to have that little bit of extra income. If you get laid off, it's like, oh, you know what? This passive income that I had on the side is actually keeping me afloat in between jobs. Or you might find out that you're pretty good at this, and then now you have options. I think one of the difficult things for the culinary world is you're a cook for so long and you're working for someone and no one's teaching you about the business aspect of it. And then there comes a point in time when it's no longer fun physically, right? Because now your back hurts, your knees hurt, your feet hurt, and you don't want to be on your feet all day, and you're in your mid-40s. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? All I know how to do is cook. And you have no other options. You have no other skills. So I think it's really important for, in my industry, for people to look at what other skills do you bring. One of the greatest skills that I took from being a chef was work ethic, because I think chefs have a tremendous work ethic because it's notoriously a tough industry with a lot of chaos, a lot of intensity, a lot of pace, a lot of people, a lot of personalities, long hours, hot. The environment isn't necessarily the best. Now, I'm not, we're not, we're not oil workers or anything like that out in the field or soldiers, but it is a tough gig. Like in terms of being able to take that work ethic and go into another industry. Sometimes you shock people. It's like, oh wait, you're going home. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday. It's like, well, we're chefs. We leave when it's done, right? Still got to clean up, or we're willing to give it that little bit of extra because the reward is in the good job that we do. And a lot of the social currency that chefs have comes from, doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how pretty your girlfriend or your boyfriend is, or how much money your parents made, or what your grades were in high school, what kind of car you drive. The only thing that matters is, can you cook good and do you work hard? That's it. That's it. Yeah. None of that other shit matters. And so that's your social currency in the kitchen. So if you're not bringing value, then there's really no point sometimes to have you on the team, because in a lot of cases, a lot of restaurants aren't in a position where it's like, hey, I have no skills. I call off a lot. I kind of have a bad attitude and I'm still learning, but hey, can you guys keep me on the team? It's like, no, like it's valuable real estate. Yeah. Let's get someone that can do that. So the social currency in a kitchen has always been, do you work hard? Can you cook well?
Do you find it hard to find a lot of those now?
Yes. Yeah. Someone came up to me the other day, a young man who was looking for mentorship. He's like, I don't know, he's like 21. And he came up to me, he's like, hey chef, can I talk to you for a minute? And it was for a restaurant that I was consulting at. And I said, sure, what's up? And he said, what kind of advice would you give a young just wants to be great and make it in the world? It kind of caught me off guard because I was outside smoking a cigar and talking shit, right? And I thought about it for a moment, and it may have not been the best advice at the moment, but it was very honest for the time that we're in now. I said, if you just show up and care, you're ahead of like 80% of the people right now. Yeah. If you just show up every day and you care about what you're doing, you're way ahead. And as unfortunate, that's a reality that we're living with right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I was in the bartending and serving world, not necessarily culinary side of it. And it was just for like, what was it? Cheddar's, like just a chain restaurant. But it's the same, like even like servers and bartenders, you still have to have a personality. You still have to be able to upsell certain items and stuff like that. And I found it's the exact same way there. It's like people just don't work. They just want to go, expect the money for them being there, and then go home. Like nobody ever goes above and beyond to do anything. Yeah. And it's not even hard to be nice to customers. It's not even hard to, but I feel like people have so much pride nowadays that they're like, I just refuse to do anything that's going to be beneficial for other people. Like I feel like a lot of people are in it for themselves now, rather than for the good of everyone.
You go to restaurants now and you see like, it's so awkward. Like everywhere you go, they flip over the iPad and it's like tip, right? $1. I like sometimes I'm paying like $2. Like $1 tip is the minimum. Yeah. It's like, shit, what do I do here? And it's awkward. But the other day I went to this place and I didn't realize, and I should probably do a little bit more research on it, but it was like the options were like 25, 35, 45. And I was like, when did we go to 25%? Yeah. It's strange. Tipping culture sometimes is like, I understand, they're not making a lot of money, but it's like, fuck, I just wanted a coffee. Yeah. I just wanted a granola bar.
Well, that's all the economy, just all the inflation going out of control.
So how do you fix that?
I don't know. There's been a big, I think, loss of the American work ethic, pride in their work ethic. Back in the, I don't want to say back in the day, 50s, 60s, that was the thing. Like Americans outwork everybody. Yeah. And they take pride in their job, from the factory to the farm. And I wonder if just the quality of life going down just enough makes these jobs seem insignificant, or stepping stones, or just float by till your big idea comes through. Or
what's interesting is like, I mean, I'd love to go down the rabbit hole of AI because I use AI a lot. What's interesting is when AI came out, like obviously everyone's afraid of Terminators first and foremost.
Justifiably so.
Yeah. Right. First of all, we're afraid of Terminators, but Second of all, when it came to jobs, I think a lot of people thought like, oh, AI is going to take all our jobs. And it's interesting that the
It's not going to be terminated. It's going to be sex robots.
yeah, hopefully.
That's
God,
how it does us in.
yeah, right. We're going to be too busy with those. But what was interesting about AI is the first jobs that it disrupted are like graphic designers, copywriters,
Right.
People, marketing firms, book editors, right? So traditional publishing, right? So AI disrupted a lot of office jobs first.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is, so as it disrupts those industries, those people have to find jobs. But it hasn't really disrupted like blue collar work. Like you still need construction workers, plumbers. I was listening to, I don't know who I was listening to. I think Tim Kennedy was saying this on a podcast the other day. He's like, you could make $250,000 in Austin as a plumber right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so much construction and no one knows how to do that shit anymore.
Oh, it's nonstop construction here. Anything into the trades is pretty solid.
Yeah. Wild. So I think with AI, it's interesting to see which industries are being disrupted first. I'm sorry. I mean, I get so many emails, and I'm sure you guys do too because of the podcast. And it's like, I always have to is this an AI? Is this a robot?
Yeah.
And I'm always like really careful when I think it might be human and I want to engage with this person. I always respond back to emails now with, if you send me any links, I will not click on them. So like I'm very upfront with that. Like everything that you need to tell me in the email.
Right.
If you send me any links, I won't click on them. Because I'm just
excuse me. You're seeing that with social medias. They'll engagement farm with like 2 bots. And so a bot will ask a question and then some bot will do like a chat GPT response. Like, funny you mentioned that. Lifting weights has several benefits. They start bullet pointing. It's like, nobody talks like that. And it's just these 2 bots going back and forth, liking each other's posts and making comments. And
it's wild.
I think my friend was telling me it's called the dead internet theory. Yeah. But it's the idea that at a certain point, almost everything going on the internet is like robot, bot, AI. And just finding a real person with individual thoughts is like, you can almost spot it out like, oh, that's a real person.
I just assume most of the people that I interact with are robots.
NPCs, bro.
Yeah, I just
NPCs, all of them.
I just assume that. Like I like want to say something kind of strange. Like I'm looking for typos and kind of ramblings. Like, okay, this is a real person. But when it just looks too perfect, I'm like, Like, AI almost leaves, especially because I use AI a lot. It almost leaves like a thumbprint that you could recognize.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh no, that's definitely not a person. What's really cool is like image creation with AI, like Midjourney or Dolly or things like that. I mean, it's so good. It's so good now that it's almost indistinguishable. So I'll create food dishes sometimes, and I'll put up a poll on my Instagram, like, is this real or AI? And it usually is about 50-50. The chefs say it's AI or it's real. And I'm not sure if they're just saying it's AI because they pretty much know that I'm setting them up. But it's amazing that I'm fooling real good chefs that AI food is real. That they think it's real, but it's AI. To the trained professional, it's almost indistinguishable now. And I mean, what you're able to do, I mean, I've been messing around with these AI video things.
How so?
So the one right now that I'm using right now is Luma Labs.
Okay.
So you could put an image in there. You can put 2 images in there, and then it'll, like you say, okay, now blend these, and like one will morph into the other one. So this is your starting point. This is your ending point. And you can create videos with that. It could generate cartoons. They're short, maybe 5-second things, and then you can just expand it. Okay, now 5 more seconds. Now 5 more seconds. Yeah, it's wild. And I predicted this when I first saw ChatGPT. When I first saw ChatGPT, one of the predictions that I had was Hollywood's done. When I saw it, I was like, that's it. Hollywood is done. Done. And I'm sure Hollywood knew that, that they were done as well. And no one was saying it, but I remember I was like, I'm calling it right now. Soon enough, you'll be able to go on Netflix or Disney or whatever and say, I want to watch Superman, but I don't want to watch that Superman. I want to watch Superman with...
where he fights this guy and does this.
This ending.
Yeah.
I want Superman to die in it. Here's a little bit of whatever. Yeah. And I want George Clooney to play Superman. Boom. And now I could watch that. Right?
Wow.
And what's interesting is, so I'm thinking this. And so last night I discovered, I wish I could remember the name of it, this website that generates an AI animated comic for you. You tell it kind of what you're looking for. You kind of design the characters. It'll write the story, and then you press play, and you could watch a 20-minute comic.
Really?
That's cool.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, oh, shit. if this is, $9.99 for me right now,
Yeah.
Netflix is like Hollywood's done
Yeah.
because I don't want to watch some of that shit.
It'll
You
be
don't-
churned out to the
Yeah.
point where it's just flooded with
Yeah.
of entertainment options and
Yeah.
Well, you don't think Hollywood being Hollywood would just like take the AI and turn it into something that like we ourselves couldn't? You think?
I don't know.
Joe Rogan was actually talking about this on. He was talking to some female comedian, but he was saying, yeah, it'll get to the point where everything is AI generated, and the best movie will be like some kid on his iPhone 10 made a Blair Witch Project solo movie. And I was like, whoa, so real. So
Yeah. It's wild what AI. I mean, it's almost indistinguishable. I mean, there's still little glitches like an extra hand or
Yeah.
it morphs kind of weird.
Did you see the thing Elon posted with all the people walking down the runway? The
Oh,
yeah,
the
like
presidents and
Obama.
stuff.
yeah, that was crazy.
it looks so real.
Yeah, it's so good. Like AI right now is the worst it will ever be.
Yeah, that's
Right?
What do you think about 3D printed food? All the things with Bill Gates.
What?
Yeah, I'm stay away from that. Like me, first of all, I'm not going to eat 3D printed food.
yeah.
I understand why you want to do that because you want to control the world, right?
Yeah.
I understand why.
That's
like
the big benefit, really.
like I get it. If you want to control the world, 3D printed food's a great idea. I'm all in.
I haven't even heard anything about it.
So you know what 3D printing is?
Yeah.
They're trying to devise like lab grown meat, lab 3D printed meat as a environmentally safe option to actual cows that fart methane and stuff in the air. And but
They burp. Cows burp.
Really?
Methane. Yeah, they don't fart methane. I think cows can't fart.
really,
Huh.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they produce a lot of methane.
Yep.
But it's kind of an odd area to tackle to save the planet, to kill
Yeah.
the cows,
Yeah.
to create fake food. Who knows how much energy it takes to supply these massive 3D printer?
I promise you it's more nutritious to eat a cow
Oh yeah.
than a 3D printed cow.
It's going to have to be.
Yeah.
Anything that's artificial is just bad for the human body.
Dude, anything
So-
that Bill Gates is coming out, like
That
I
sounds
just
like a
I
great way
just
to get cancer.
yeah, right?
Just
well, even that,
immediately.
like he's openly talked about population control and decreasing the population. So
Yeah.
pretty much anything that he says,
Yeah.
I'm kind of weary about. I'm like, maybe stay away.
So there's a book that I read. It's titled "The Universe in a Single Atom." It's by the Dalai Lama, and I read this book 15 years ago or so. And I remember reading it, and there's sections in there where so the Dalai Lama is very interested in physics and science and things like that. And this was kind of the premise of the book is bridging Buddhist philosophy with science, right? Anyway, there's a point in that book where the Dalai Lama is talking about genetically modified tomatoes and injecting spider DNA into tomatoes because it produces a better tomato. And I remember reading that, I was like, there's no way that's true. There's fucking no way that's true. It's fucking true.
Yep.
It's really true. And I think when you really, as a chef, when you really start digging into like frankenfoods and what's happening with food,
Yeah.
it's scary. It's scary. I mean, obviously, the banana that we see today is not the banana that we had 2,000 years ago. And so, of course, things have been manipulated by man.
Selective breeding is so much different than genetically modified.
And
In a lab.
I think that's the thing is like we went from 2,000 year evolution of the banana to like, oh yeah, let's print the food, let's print the meat, right? And I just think like anyone with a little bit of common sense about health,
Yeah.
like if you and I think this is a really interesting subject is when people talk about health, like the first thing you want to look at is are they healthy?
Right.
Like the person talking, are you healthy?
Yeah.
And then you see that they're not healthy. And if you would look at a healthy person and you would ask them, okay, this person's fit, they're tan, they're jacked. Would you eat that? And
Like
they're
Corbin.
they're looking like you guys. And like, would you eat, 3D printed meat? And you're like, no. Well, okay. Like, who am I going to listen to? I mean, I hate to say it. Like, you could look at someone and be like, okay, like, just do more of that. I mean, unless they're like bright red.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Jake Paul, bright red, like he was painted with red crayon.
Well, did
That's
you
the blood
see?
pressure.
Yeah.
There was this TikTok or Instagram video where it's like, these are the three leaders of our healthcare like sphere
They're all
and policy.
morbidly
They're
obese.
all three of
Yeah.
them are morbidly obese.
Like, how are you going to take advice from someone? Like, the old expression is don't take financial advice from a poor person, right? Don't take dietary advice from, Bill Gates. Like,
Yeah.
he's not a pillar of health. You don't look at him and like, oh, I want to be healthy like Bill Gates. Would I take financial advice from Bill Gates? Yes.
Yeah.
Would I take advice on him on how to, run the world, black out the sun. Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm trying to work on blacking out the sun. The first person I'm gonna call is Bill Gates.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
What
it
advice
all.
would you give me as a young villain trying to conquer the world?
Also, a young minion that's thinking about blacking out the sun in case your plan doesn't work out. How would you do it?
Yeah. Well, dude, it all leads back to like listen to the people that are doing the things that you want to do and have the things that you want. Like why? Yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like,
It's
why
the
are you
same with
going to
the
take
internet.
advice?
We can do that. We can find experts in every field that put out massive content and just go down every rabbit hole you want. With,
Yeah.
And I don't really like advise people to subscribe to like courses and stuff like that because I know a lot of the online courses, like especially the people that are like, it's like, oh, I'm rich. Like this is how I got rich. Like they get rich from selling the courses, not from actually doing it.
Yeah.
So that's why I stick to free content. Like the people that give out the real advice, the free content, and they have proof.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's exactly what you said about Alex Hormozy. It's like, say it again. What was
He
it?
said a simple offer with 100 pieces of proof is better than an offer with 100 small pieces or 100 moving pieces with no proof.
Yeah. And you wouldn't take cooking advice from a non-chef,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't take fighting advice from the guy that sits on the couch all day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just common sense. So where do I stand on 3D printed food or fake food or all that? Look, I think as a chef, if I want to prepare delicious food for someone, nutritious, and someone that I care about, the first thing I'm going to do, like, let's just say someone that I love is coming over and I want to cook for them to show them appreciation. A friend, a family member, whatever. I'm not going to think here, I should 3D print some meat. Like, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm going to say, I'm going to go to Whole Foods or Central Market or something like that. I'm going to buy some organics. I'm going to get beautiful in-season produce. I'm going to create something beautiful, simple, technical, and delicious.
Yeah.
I'm never going to think to myself, what's the cheapest, most hormone pumped piece of meat that I could find.
Yeah, you get your meat paste and then you put it in the machine. And it,
Right.
There's an energetic quality to hand picking the pieces of fruit you buy or pieces of produce at the store, I think, too. It's almost like that cooking with love. That's a stage of that, is actually hand picking the stuff and choosing the good tomato or the good apple of the bunch. And
Then, by the way, you have a fig tree.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you have a fig tree out
Yeah,
there.
he was just
Oh.
telling me earlier.
Yeah, you don't have any figs on it because I imagine all the birds are eating it.
Okay.
But if you there's like a net that you could put on your fig tree and then you have figs,
Yeah.
a lot of figs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might be
Good enough.
stupid, but can you like explain to me like what a fig is exactly? Because I've had like a fig Newton or fig Neuter, the little like cookie thing, but like what exactly is a fig?
Well, it's a fruit, and there's a lot of seeds on the inside, so smooth skin on the outside. It almost looks like a testicle.
Okay.
A single testicle, right? And you split it open, and it's going to usually be red or purplish pink on the inside,
Okay.
with a lot of little seed sacs. And I mean, it's delicious. Figs are wonderful, great,
Very delicious.
great with cheese or whatever the case may be. But jam,
Yeah.
yeah, figs are great. But yeah, you have a tree out there, and that's also something weird. Like, I've often thought about this as a chef, as someone who like wants to go in my backyard and plant a garden and have some tomatoes and some basil and whatever, right? Like, why are there no fruit trees in people's yards? Like, why when we build a house, do we never say let's plant an orange tree or a lemon tree or an apricot tree or an almond tree? Like, why are there so many trees in everyone's homes and very little homes have fruit bearing trees? Number one. And usually when they do, it's because someone planted them. It's because it was a deliberate intention by the homeowner, not because and you think about this, like an almond tree, I don't know, don't exactly quote me on this, but it's going to take maybe 15, 20 years before an almond tree ever produces fruit. You're going to have this tree for a long time. But when it finally does, like almonds forever, right? Like,
Right.
you're gonna have almonds every time it produces fruit, or peaches every summer, or whatever the case may be. And I think to myself, like, why aren't we just going around planting fruit trees in the fucking woods?
Yeah.
And
That's one thing Bill Gates is adamant about, is planting trees for his climate control ideas.
is he?
Yeah, he said in an interview, he's like, planting trees, that's silly. We have real solutions. Just dismiss all of the
Real solutions. What are the real solutions?
Yeah.
planting trees, having farms. And I also heard that on a podcast that volcanoes produce more carbon in the atmosphere than almost all technology combined.
Yeah.
And it's so routine throughout the world that it's almost a farce to try to go after any man-made carbon compared to just what's already happening in nature. It's unstoppable, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the violence that created this planet, in the billions of years when the ocean was boiling off, right, in the atmosphere because it was so hot, it's like I'm sure the planet will survive us.
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah.
I'm sure like the planet's gonna be just fine. with or
Ironically, I
without us.
feel like the worst pollution we're doing is to the water and to the air with like plastics and pollutions like that. No one's really talking about that. They're going after carbon, which is, it seems like a scapegoat for nefarious plans, really.
Yeah. I mean, I often now, by the way, I think some books that people should read. If I could give a reading list, not like the best books I've ever read, but like books that I think people should read, like read The Art of War,
Yeah.
right?
for
Read,
sure.
read Machiavelli, right? Read Edward Bernay's Propaganda, right?
Mhm.
And I think just with those, read Influence by Robert Cialdini, right? Read some of these books. And I think when you understand how things are set up, you recognize them everywhere. There's another book out there that's also really good called How to Lie with Statistics, right? Really good book. I think if you read those books, you would see bullshit everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would see the money play. You would see the secret hand that's making the moves, and you would see like, oh yeah, this is like straight out of Art of War. This is straight out of Machiavelli. Oh, this is Edward Bernay's 101. You'd see propaganda everywhere. I think unfortunately one of the biggest things, we were talking earlier about cooks, and one of the difficulties with people in the kitchen today is I think this is just life right now, is there's just not critical thinking. Like I think that's the biggest thing missing right now is critical thinking, and the ability to spot bullshit isn't there. And it's like sometimes I'm looking at the world, sometimes it's in a kitchen or just having a conversation with someone that's like, fuck, do you really think I'm that stupid? Are you gaslighting me? Like, I know you're lying. You know I know you're lying, but we're going to continue on and play like this game. It's if people would think critically, I think the problem with not thinking critically though is then you have to confront dishonesty, because it's like, now, like I said, you're lying to me. I know you're lying. You know I know you're lying. But the only way we're going to get through this is if I confront you, and I don't have the balls to confront you on the fact that you're lying, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we get into situations where now you're being taken advantage for your wages, or you're not getting promoted, or right, all these other issues that go around. But like, yeah, if I could advise people, like, read those books, and you will become a human bullshit detector.
It's super important now. People have to really look out for themselves, and by helping other people look out for themselves, you're looking out for them too. But
Yeah.
it's a kind of a relatively new phenomenon. I say it's new, but it's probably been going on since JFK's time. But everything being propagandized, everything being monetized.
Yeah.
Even with food, like you go to the grocery store and there's eggs that say natural farm fresh eggs.
Yeah, what does
that
natural
means
mean?
nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's all farm fresh, right?
Yeah.
It's all natural-ish.
it came from a farm.
Yeah.
if you want to call it
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it came from a chicken, right? So yes, it is natural. It was natural birth, but
People are
there's so
starting
much
to see through
fuckery. There's so much fuckery, and I think the more that people train themselves to see through the bullshit, they'll see it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, what was that movie back in the day with Roddy Piper? We had those glasses. You know which ones I'm talking about? So it was called, anyway, there's a movie with Roddy Piper, the wrestler, and he stumbles upon these glasses. And whenever he puts the glasses on, he sees through the matrix, basically. Like the billboard that says, drink Coke, all of a sudden transitions into like, we're killing you with this drink, right? It's a great movie. And it was like, at the end of it, was like these nefarious aliens that were controlling the world, right?
Yeah.
But it's a really great movie. But it's like, once you put those glasses on of being able to see through bullshit, you see bullshit everywhere. You see propaganda, you see you see gaslighting, you see deceit. And it's a good armor, I think, that people need to have, because if you can't spot bullshit, you will be taken advantage of, because someone out there is looking for a sucker.
And it may not even be a like one and done kind of thing. It's just a slow degradation, like Coca-Cola. Is it evil in and of itself? Arguable, but it's certainly not optimal. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
And it's very money profit driven in general. So they really shave off the health and lifespan of people for profit at a lot of different angles, from food to entertainment.
Yeah.
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 You name it.
So here's a story that I heard. It was really good, and it helped. It helped change the way I think about things. So there's a hypnotist, and he's in the desert with someone who's a skeptic, and he says the guy that he's with does not believe in hypnosis. So he asked the hypnotist. He's like, I kind of don't believe that your hypnosis is real, and I don't know how good of a hypnotist you are. He says, not only am I a good hypnotist, I am the best hypnotist, and I could hypnotize that person. So they saw someone in the distance that's riding on a camel in the desert. He says, I can hypnotize that person from here. He says, okay, I'll call your bet. He says, make him stop. And he says, done. So the guy that's on the camel stops in the middle of the desert. He's like, okay, that could be coincidence. He's like, make him get off the camel. He says, done. So the guy gets off the camel. He's like, okay, too much of a coincidence. Maybe that's not real. He says, make him pick up a rock and throw it. So the guy picks up a rock and throws it. He's like, okay, maybe these are all lined up. Maybe it's a coincidence. He's like, make him go get the rock. So the guy goes and gets the rock. He's like, I don't know how you're doing it. Let's go talk to this guy. So the two people walk over there and says, excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question? He says, yes. He's like, why did your camel stop? And he says, well, I thought I saw something. And he says, okay, so why'd you get off your camel? He says, well, I wanted to get a better look. And he says, okay, well, why'd you pick up the rock and throw it? He's like, because I thought I saw a snake and I wanted to throw it to see if it was a snake. And he says, well, why'd you go get the rock? He's like, because it was heavy and I thought it was gold. So I wanted to go check if it was a piece of gold. That's the end of the story, right? So it's one of those open-ended, like, was he hypnotizing him, or was it, or was it just a coincidence?
Yeah.
And there's no real answer, but let's assume that he was hypnotizing him, right? And it brings into the question of, do you really have free will, or are you under the influence of because you're constantly bombarded with programming from when you were a child to what your parents taught you, to your circle of influence, to what you see on social media, and how much of your actions are on autopilot. We're talking about NPCs.
Yep.
Right. So how much of your actions are autopilot versus how much is that you? Now, it's a really interesting question, because if you ask yourself that, my friends are predictable. They know if they say this, they're going to get under my skin. And they know, oh, watch, Andre's going to do this if you do this. Right. And I'll do it on autopilot. And I've even caught myself saying, someone said, were you really mad? I said, no, but I felt like I had to. Like, I wasn't really mad. That's what I do. I get mad when that happens, but I'm not really mad. And so you start to really ask yourself, like, how much of your thoughts are truly yours? And if you do a deep dive and you say, okay, write down 100 things you learned from your parents. Like, go for people listening, if you want to do this exercise, go do this. Go home, write down 100 things that you learned from your parents. And what you start to realize is those 100 things, like, at first it's kind of easy, but then you start going into some dark places, like, oh shit, I learned how to be mean to people, or I learned that I don't like this. And then you're like, so are they your ideas? Are they your thoughts? Or was it programming, right?
Can you hang on 1 second? I'm going to take a bathroom break.
Yeah.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, no. I'm hoping I'm keeping it entertaining.
Oh, absolutely. No, I've thought the same thing. Like, my biggest thing is, like, I think people should question everything until you have a reason to adopt it as truth. You know what I mean? Like, gosh, what's a good example? I don't know. I always bring it back to, like, health and diet. Like, listen to the people that have the things. Like, you see, I don't know, the people that are just fat and obese and what they're eating and telling you. Like, maybe it's somebody that does work out, but they say, yeah, I'm bulking. All I do is eat McDonald's. And it's like, look at them and their production output. Like, do they have energy? Are they somebody that I would like to be necessarily? Like, if I was friends with them, would I be proud of myself? Basically. And so if the answer is no to that, then I'm not saying you should, like, disassociate from them, but, like, really think about the advice that they're telling you, and if you want to adopt that to your life. Yeah.
Do you want them influencing you? Right.
Yeah. And something that like really upsets me is, like, you could be a fan of a certain influencer or a certain person and like certain qualities of them, and people will automatically associate you with that person and just assume that that's exactly what you are, and you have the exact same beliefs as them. And maybe for a lot of people that's true, but I feel like in order to grow as a human, you need to observe as many people as possible that have things that you want, and pick and choose the qualities, the traits, and the habits that all these different people have to combine and make you one of
kinda
what
the gist
you
of our
want to
brand.
be. Yeah,
Is stealing all the good stuff you see from everybody and
exactly.
just assimilating it into the person you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry to interrupt your
No, you're
Story.
So
fine.
the 100
but-
things your
So-
parents teach you.
So you write down these 100 things, and then you figure out who you really are, and you figure out why. Now, just because you then figure out like why you're programmed that way doesn't mean you could unprogram yourself, right? So I think that's a different conversation. One of the things that I don't like about myself currently, and I'm struggling with this so much that I've decided to make a change, is that when I stepped away from being a chef, I find myself, because of what I do through social media, the podcast, and I create content for chefs and I mentor chefs, I find myself on Instagram a lot, responding to DMs or answering questions or creating a post or whatever. And then when I don't need to be on Instagram, I'm still on Instagram, right? Like I don't need to be on there anymore, but I still open my phone, I still scroll, and I don't know why I'm there. And then I go do something, and then I sit down and then I pick up my phone again. I start looking, and then it's like, oh, Instagram has nothing rewarding from me. Let me go over to Twitter or X. Let me scroll until I find something interesting. I see a Proper Thieves post like that, right?
Good.
Right?
Yes.
Your Twitter's really good, by the way.
Thank you.
For people that don't follow your Twitter, it's really good. Really, I always read your stuff. It's really well written.
Thanks, man.
It's all Andrew.
It's really good. It's really good. You put one up the other day about finding early like being
yes.
an early adopter. I was like, it's so good. But anyway, so I find myself too addicted to social media, and I don't want to be, because I'm like, wow, it crept in and now it's got a hold. And I don't like the fact that it's got a hold, but I haven't figured out like, okay, well, I mean, I could easily just stop it,
Yeah,
right? But I don't feel like doing that.
yeah.
So I downloaded this audiobook. I don't remember where I heard about it. Actually, I think I heard Whitney Cummings, the comedian, talking about it. So it's this book by the author is called Alan Carr. It's an audiobook, and it's smartphone, dumb phone, I think is what it's called. Smartphone, dumb phone.
Okay.
And he's a hypnotist. And so you listen to the audiobook, and while you're listening to the audiobook, it's supposed to be subtly using persuasion techniques to hypnotize you to break the habit. And so he says when you're done with the audiobook, you're going to realize you've broken the habit of whatever. So I'm listening. I'm an hour in, and I've already noticed, just with 1 hour of listening to it, a significant reduction in my phone, or I shouldn't say it's a phone addiction. Well, it's an app addiction.
Yeah.
Human brains are a lot more robotic, I think, than people realize.
Yeah.
It's very much like a hardware, and there's software, and thoughts grow and manifest and whatnot, and the inputs you get from subtle sources, direct sources like your parents, your church, whatever,
I think you can be coded and programmed just like any computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can also hack your own self and then like uncode and recode and upload stuff.
Yeah, and that's the game.
The funny thing is, I always go back to the placebo effect. The placebo effect is one of the most scientifically proven things, and it's also one of the most culturally dismissed things as, oh, that's just hocus pocus. That's just your mind convincing yourself that you don't need to look at the phone. And but it's absolutely a powerful thing. I've seen in 6th Street these street performers, street hypnotists.
Yeah.
That, I mean, unless they're just having all these plants in the crowd, but I've seen them do stuff in person that just blew my mind, where they're like snapping fingers and waving fingers in front of people's eyes, and they just almost put them into like Control-Alt-Delete mode.
Yeah.
And then they make them do stuff.
So I studied hypnotism, NLP, and mesmerism for a little bit.
Okay, see, this is interesting.
When I say I studied, like I read like 4 books and spent a lot of time on blogs and went down the rabbit hole on YouTube. But nonetheless, I spent, let's just say I have at least 100 hours worth of research on the 3 subjects. And what I found really interesting about all of that is how you can reprogram yourself. And when you start to read some of the old stuff, like the 1800s stuff, like they're curing all sorts of diseases with hypnosis, and you start to realize, to your point, it's all placebo. And I think if you could hack the brain, you start to realize, like, there's so much that we don't understand, and I'm constantly trying to level up my character, right? Like in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I could use hypnosis or NLP or a persuasion technique, or like I said, read these books so I could spot deception. I'm always trying to add a little bit to the character, right? Like, okay, let's add some XP over here, or like a little bit more over there. But I do, to your point, I do think that hypnosis or this programming that we have can be undone. And when you figure out how to hack it, it's not easy, right? Because if it was easy, everyone would do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people that are working towards that, you see them. I mean, you see athletes all the time using, going to coaches and whatnot. I used to listen to a lot of auto hypnosis, just for whatever it was that I wanted to focus on. If I wanted to get better at something, it's like, okay, if I could get a little edge on this, then why not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Will this auto hypnosis work? I don't know if it worked, or I don't know if it didn't, because I don't know if I'd notice, right?
Right.
But nonetheless, I'm willing to experiment. I'm pretty open like that. Like I'm willing to experiment if it makes me better. I was in a conversation once, and in my office when I was a chef, my assistant McKenna was into astrology, and my number two that worked underneath me, titled the executive sous chef, was not into astrology. Like, it's all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they were having this argument going back and forth on it. And I was like, I wanted to jump into this argument, but I have no knowledge of astrology. Like, I don't know if it's bullshit. I don't know if it's real. I don't know. Like, I'm just going to go in and argue with nothing to stand on.
Yeah.
And they both seem to have pretty solid points on. I was like, so who's right? Is this guy that says astrology is bullshit, or is she right who says no? You could look in the star charts, and my sun rising, and whatever, right? I'm a Virgo. We're a terrible match, and that's why we're arguing. So I left that conversation frustrated with the fact that I know nothing about astrology, and I felt left out. So what did I do? I went and signed up for an astrology course, and I took like 10 hours worth of astrology. Could I read a chart? No. I could tell you what the what are they called? The glyphs, right? I could tell you what they are. Like, well, that's a Taurus or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about astrology. But here's what I did take away from it: is that the guy that didn't believe in astrology thought astrologers were charlatans and that they're in it to screw you over, right?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't believe that. She thought astrology is real. Now, what I learned from this astrology course, is it real or is it not real? I don't know. But the astrologers think it's real. They're not charlatans. You know what I mean? They're not out to deceive you.
Yeah.
Right.
In their mind, they think it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the point of all that? Is like, it gave me a better perspective, and now I could understand, like, they're not trying to screw you over, these astrologers. They truly believe this shit.
Yeah.
Or it's not shit to them, but they truly believe this astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And to the other person that doesn't believe in it, they truly have some legitimate points as to why they don't believe it. It's, well, the Earth used to rotate this way, and now, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's null and void now.
Yeah.
And this is how my mind works, and this kind of goes back to the point: is if I don't know something, I'm not gonna plant my flag in the ground and say this is it if I don't understand it.
Right.
But I want to be involved in the conversation. So if I don't understand the conversation, I'm going to go out and learn it, and I'm going to come back so I could be involved in the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, I feel like all that comes down to, like, just what people choose to believe in. Kind of going back to the placebo effect. It's like, you can find evidence for just about any argument based on what you believe, I feel like. And so,
Confirmation bias.
Yes. Yeah. Now, is it true or not? I don't know. But, I mean, whenever it comes to the conversation of astrology and stuff, I don't know shit about it either. Like, have I bought into it for a little while because of... Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess the stars aligning then got me laid this night. Yeah, so be it. So, I mean, I'll buy into it, I guess, just depending on the situation. But I feel like it all goes back to just what you choose to believe in. And that's what you're going to, like, plant your flag and be grounded in. But like you, I think it's important to be open to the other side of the argument.
Yes.
I think a lot of people, too, they want to formulate an idea on a belief or what their belief is and then just move on and just consider that subject taken care of.
Yeah.
And
check.
Check, I get it. I know what I believe about history, war, religion,
I read it.
politics. I made my decision up years ago, or made my mind up. But it takes a lot more intellectual capacity to entertain ideas and always grow when new ideas come in or new information,
New evidence and
new
stuff.
evidence. Yeah, there's always Joe Rogan on another podcast. Talk about Joe Rogan all the time. He had a podcast with a dude named Sebastian Younger, and he put up this picture of two quantum entangled particles. I guess they got some kind of light picture of these particles. Anyway, it looked exactly like a yin yang.
Oh, interesting.
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, like a, core principle of reality.
Yeah.
Of these quantum entangled particles and the observed particles being there versus not.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm reading right now Michio Kaku, the theoretical physicist, right? He has a book on quantum computers.
Yeah, that's going to change a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so I didn't know anything about quantum computers. I didn't really understand it, right? And so there's this show on Hulu called Devs, DEVS, and I was just one day asked ChatGPT, like, recommend me something fun to watch. These are the kind of shows I like. These are the movies that I like, and said, watch Devs. Okay, let me watch this. What's this about? So it's about a quantum supercomputer. I'm going to spoil it. So if people are listening, I'm going to spoil this. But this quantum supercomputer can predict basically time backwards and just slightly into the future. But pretty much it's a time machine. So it could project based on the the greatest pool shot, that the cue ball is, or whatever, it's going to go in that one, right? So the quantum computer basically does that, and it's creating images all the way into the past, right? So people can see the past. And I was like, whoa, this is pretty interesting, because I heard about quantum computers and I didn't follow the conversation. Let me go get this book, right? And the more I read about quantum computers, and because I work a lot with AI, I would say that once quantum computers are like up and running, like really up and running, like everyone has access, and I mean, I think it's game over. Like, I think reality as we know it is done. Based on what I'm like, it's just,
we're moving towards such a digital society. We get to the point where we can 3D print, robot bodies or genetic clone bodies, and then just keep re-uploading your consciousness into new.
Yes, I think digital immortality is around the corner with quantum computers. Meaning that, this might be a digital immortality that we're in right now, for all we know, right?
Yeah.
I think digital immortality is around the corner with quantum computers that, they're going to upload everyone eventually into the matrix. And everything that I'm reading now is like, holy shit. Yeah. Game over.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about generating value in a landscape like that, where everything is online. And what online tasks can be done to generate value with the power of your brain.
That's so wild. Like, we're living in wild times. Ever since 2020 COVID.
Yeah.
Like, if that put everyone on the couch, either watching Tiger King or like on your phone, following a conspiracy theory or whatever, right? It opened up everyone's curiosity to what's happening in the world. And the world is almost unrecognizable today to the way it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I look at like AI and how advanced it has become, and we look at currencies like Bitcoin, and I don't know when this podcast is going to be released, but today begins day one of the Bitcoin conference, and so you have, presidential candidates like Trump going to speak at the Bitcoin conference, and the president of El Salvador, and billionaires, and Michael Saylor, and all these other people that are going to go speak at the Bitcoin conference and talking about, is this potentially a national reserve strategy for the country? And you look at countries like El Salvador, who have adopted Bitcoin as a part of their national reserve strategy, right? And you start to think, like, where are we going with this? Like, digital money, right? Everything's online. We're tapping into the matrix, quantum computers, AI. I hear Elon Musk has said that and I've even heard Joe Rogan say this, that they're a firm believer in universal basic income. And it's like a pretty big socialist idea. But I'm also looking at I think eventually we're going to have to look at that, because there's not going to be enough jobs.
Yeah.
There's not going to be enough jobs when the robots come, right?
Yeah.
First, they're coming for your jobs. Then they're coming for, your sex. Right?
Yeah.
Sex robots next, or whatever, right? hopefully it's just jobs and sex and not jobs, sex, and then kill you.
Yeah.
Job, sex, and your soul.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just we're going into very interesting times, and hopefully good times, right? So it's like we're on the razor's edge. So back to the yin and yang. So it's the two fish, right? The black fish and the white fish. And then there's a white line between it, and there's two dots. There's a black dot in the white fish, the eye, right? And then there's a white dot in the black fish, right? They're kind of like going at each other. And what that represents is that they're constantly transmuting one into the other, right? And the white and the black dots in the opposite colors represent the element of change and chaos is always present in the other, right? So the element for light is always present in the dark, and the element of dark is always present in the light, and then it could quickly then transmute into the other, right?
Yeah.
And right now, I've never in my life, in my 25 years on this planet, ish,
Give or take.
give or take 25 years. My in my 800 years, maybe we give me vampire years, right? In my 800 years on this planet, I've never felt that the period of time that we're living in right now is more uncertain. Meaning that, like, you could have looked at like 2016 and looked at 2017 and okay, I kind of get what's going to happen next year. I don't know what 2025 looks like.
Yeah.
Right? I can't predict it.
Well, especially with AI coming, I think the two biggest threats are in a communistic type society, you're going to see a huge Big Brother type implementation of it, from social credit scores to facial recognition tracking and really limiting people's freedoms. In a capitalistic society, you're going to see swaths of people unemployed very quickly as breakthroughs happen, and then just, eviscerate certain industries from workers. And unless we get ahead of that and start finding ways to recapture this human potential to something else, maybe it's like preservation, redirect the money that would have been spent to like preserving the forest or the oceans or something along those lines. And universal income will probably be a thing.
Yeah.
It almost has to be, as so many jobs become.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean whenever you say universal income? Like, explain that to me.
A very rudimentary understanding of universal basic income, and maybe Andrew, you could correct me if I'm wrong if you know something I don't, but basically it's your monthly check.
It's like everybody gets an allowance.
Yeah, it's your allowance from the government, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So everyone gets a certain amount to cover their basic needs. So shelter, food, whatever your basic needs are taken care of. So you could pursue the arts, right? I mean, maybe we are truly going into a creative world. Like there's everything, all your other things are taken care of. So just focus on the creative process. So whether that's physical, right, exercise, stuff like that, or that's, cooking or, drawing, whatever it is, like podcasting, creating content. Maybe that's where we're headed because everything else is taken care of.
Yeah. So
I don't know. It'll be interesting. And will this only apply to first world nations, right? Right. So are other countries going to lag behind? Like, is it going to be a very interesting world when we have quantum computers and supercomputers and everyone's here in the metaverse and we all Apple, whatever those glasses
Vision
are called.
Pro.
Yeah, Vision Pro. And we're all, plugged into the metaverse and chilling in, the Matrix. And it's like, oh, but not in that third world country. No, they're still struggling. Don't send them any Vision Pro. Keep them struggling. Like, these are like real issues that I think the world is going to face here pretty soon. I'm very curious how this is going to play out. And it could just play out very slowly and like you said, 2016 looks like 2017, or it could be radically different in the next few years. Yeah. I had read something about 10 years ago, and I wish I could remember where I read it, but nonetheless, it was a legit source, and it said that within 40 years we will be immortal. I remember reading that. It was like within 40 years we will have the technology to basically become immortal. When they were talking about 3D printing organs, the quantum computers. One of the things with quantum computers is they're talking about like they'll be able to rapidly prototype drugs and therapies for illnesses, right? So what would take us with our current technology years and years and years of iterating, a quantum computer could do that just like that and say, oh, no, here's the pill. That's it. And then you can 3D print the pill. This fixes that. So I mean, what's going to happen when the AI is doing the laser surgery and their hands don't tremble?
Yeah.
Right? So I think we're headed to really interesting times. I mean, this is a lot of complex things to think about for a chef.
Well, from a simple bird's eye view, as society advances, all the work and all the things we produce should lead to the next generation being better off,
Right.
and better off and better off and better off and better off. And it's kind of going the opposite. It's like they're having to work more and more and more and more and more for less and less and less. Something went wrong with society to where we're backtracking year after year. There are certain people that are just benefiting hugely, but for the average person, like, that's why the universal UBI, the universal basic income, doesn't seem so far-fetched. There's massive amounts of money kind of being squandered, misspent, stolen.
Yeah.
If all of that kind of corrupt intentions got removed from the source, I think society could just flourish overnight.
Right.
And the resources could be used for much more philanthropic ideas and quality of life. And I mean, who knows where that's going to go? You almost get the point of, can we ever get to a point in society where we stop tribing up and then fighting other tribes, like other countries, other coalitions, whatnot, because that kind of slows us down to the point where we stagnate. And in our back pocket, we always got to maintain this military in case we always gotta account for treachery.
You know what you just reminded me of? Whatever happened in Haiti?
What?
You remember they had, like, I feel like it was this year, like, the Haitians overthrew the government and there was this guy barbecue going around killing people.
Oh yeah.
Whatever happened to that?
I don't know. Our news cycle is so fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you forget about it. Like, I was like, oh shit, whatever happened to Haiti?
I remember looking into that too.
Even the Trump assassination was a week ago,
Yeah.
and now that's
Wait.
just old news.
They tried to kill him? A little kid? Got through the best security?
Yeah.
How? Lucky kid.
Smart guy. Should recruit that kid. Yeah, I can't now.
Yeah, poor kid. Yeah, it's like, fuck. I mean, the news cycle is so fast. It's like, fuck, what happened? I mean, yeah, the world is it's a very interesting place right now, and it's like I said, your bullshit meter has to be pretty high.
Yeah.
Your bullshit detector has to be on all the time to recognize, like, oh, that person is full of shit. I'm being taken advantage of here, but also have some sort of a creative mind, like your own quantum computer in your head that's programming, like, what are the next 5 moves here? Like, what's going to happen? How do I get ahead of it? So in my industry as a chef, a lot of chefs are reluctant, to say the least, to embrace AI because they're like, it has no soul. It can't tell us how to cook. It's never going to replace us in the kitchen. I don't like it. It's like, well, you might not like it, but your replacement will.
Competition.
Yeah. The person that's going to out hustle you, that's going to be able to do your job 10 times more efficiently because they use AI is going to be. So it's like, it's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm just naive, but how could AI be beneficial and prevalent in a kitchen?
I'll give you a couple of examples. One of the things that I think people don't understand about chefs is that you spend a lot of time doing administrative tasks, ordering food, writing schedules, writing recipes, planning things, writing a prep list for all the different stations in the kitchen. Like, there's realistically several hours worth of administrative work, then special menus and emails and everything else that goes with being a leader in a kitchen.
Gotcha.
And so the person that has to sit down and type all these emails when they could automate them, the person that has to write a recipe that takes them 30 minutes to write a recipe that long, that can now write that same recipe in a fraction of a second, puts you back in the kitchen doing what you love to do, which is cooking. So the person that's not embracing AI is looking at it like, oh, they're taking away my job. It's like, no, AI is actually going to allow you to do the best part of your job, which is cook more and iterate faster. So you could go on, so I do a lot of consulting and I coach chefs. So one of the things that I do coach them with AI is I will go to them and so they'll say, can you create an AI chatbot for me for recipe writing? And I'll say, sure. So it'll write the recipes as they see fit. So we want it in grams and kilograms versus cups and spoons. And the reason that is in professional kitchens, we usually don't use cups and spoons and ounces. We use grams and kilos. This is more precise. And I want the recipe to be written in order of the steps of service. And I want the steps of service to be numbered 1 through 5 or whatever. I want them to be bullet pointed versus a big summary. And I want an equipment list. And I want a tip at the end to explain to me the history of this recipe. Right. So you program the chatbot and then you say, okay, give me these recipes. And boom. And then can you also give me an order list of what I need for these recipes? So it's quick. So
Okay.
you could do that. And then what you could do, again, so stacking the AI from a chef's perspective, you could say, I need a menu for a Japanese restaurant that's inspired by, Chile or Peru or whatever, right? With these types of ingredients, and it's summer, and write me a template. So, okay, boom, here's the menu. Then you can look at it and say, okay, this is a good starting point. I might not use everything on it, but it's a good starting point. Now, let's say you have a good first draft of that menu. Then you could take the dish that you want to create, but you don't know how to plate it. Now you have the recipes and you have the dish, but now you can go into an image generator and say, create a very interesting plate plated by a 3 Michelin star chef, artistically presented, and this is the dish. It has fish, it has peas, it has carrots, and then boom, here's an image. What a beautiful presentation. I'm going to start doing it that way, right? So you can iterate way faster, right? Versus having to cook the fish, plate the fish, it didn't look good, cook it again. It's like, nope, this is how we want it to look. Boom, recipe done. Did all that in 15 minutes, which would have taken me 15 hours.
Right.
Yeah, that's groundbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I coach people on that, it blows their mind because it's like, holy shit, I didn't know you could do all that. It's like, yeah, this is a tool. This is like when Google came out. It's like, no. I'm going to go to the library and research everything. Right? I'm going to read every single newspaper. What were those things in the library? The card catalog, right?
The Dewey Decimal
The Dewey Decimal. Like, I'm going to use, I don't even remember what it's called. I'm going to use that. It's like, oh, come on, man, just Google it. AI basically just leveraged you by 10x to be much more efficient.
ChatGPT is almost replacing Google in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is. I use ChatGPT for research more than I use Google. So there's the other one that just came out, Perplexity AI, which is basically another AI, but it scours the internet to make sure that the data is factual. So it's basically your search for research.
What is it called?
Perplexity.
Perplexity. I'm gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I use a lot of it. And then for image creation, ads and things like that. It's great.
I just want to ask you a little bit more about like Bitcoin. What do you think Bitcoin is looking like in the next couple years?
I'll tell you what I think about Bitcoin. And this is not financial advice. So I'm not a financial advisor. I barely graduated high school, right? So I'm not smart at all. But with that being said, with regards to Bitcoin, I think every few years the Bitcoin halving, and basically, so there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever come into existence. And every few years, what's called the halving happens. I want to say it's every 4 years, right? Every 4 years, the amount of reward gets cut in half for the Bitcoin miner. So if a Bitcoin miner, meaning the computer that was solving the complex problems to receive Bitcoin rewards, the reward gets cut in half. So if you were getting 2 Bitcoins as your reward, now you're getting 1. So it constantly becomes more scarce. I don't remember what the exact number was, but I read something like of the 21 million Bitcoin that will ever become into existence, there's like only 1% more to mine. I don't know if that's true or not. Someone could fact check me on that. But there's a scarcity problem with Bitcoin. And because the halving just happened a couple of months ago, the price of Bitcoin today, as we're talking, is about 65,000, right? So 5 years ago, it was $500. So that's a great return on investment. Now, if you could extrapolate that into the future, you would think that it's going to continually become more and more valuable as it becomes more and more scarce. I think right now we are at the beginning, from what experts say, not me, from what experts say is we are at the beginning of the next bull cycle. We're at the early stages of it. And what typically happens in the last few Bitcoin bull cycles, they all kind of rhyme, right? They all kind of look the same. You have this parabolic spike of, maybe 10x, and then you have a big crash, and then, a bear market, and then you have this other big parabolic spike. Right now, we're at the beginning stages of the parabolic spike. So if I had money, which I don't, I would buy Bitcoin, which I'm not.
All right.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah. I just kind of want your advice on it.
Yeah. No, not advice, just my opinion. I want to make sure I'm clear.
I do think it's cool that Trump came out and said he's not going to go for a central banking currency or anything along those lines.
Yeah. Well, the great thing about Bitcoin is that it is an immutable ledger. So there's no fuckery going on, like what goes on with our money printing system, right? So where most money is inflationary because you could print more, right? And it debases the currency. Bitcoin is deflationary. So that's one of the unique properties of Bitcoin. It's a lot of people a lot of people that are really into Bitcoin will say it's the only true hard money that exists because it's scarce, right? It's saleable across time and space, and it's a great store of value. So some people look at Bitcoin as money. Other people look at it as property, and so you could look at it two different ways. So one of the biggest people in Bitcoin is Michael Saylor, and he has a great example. He's like, Bitcoin is like buying property in Manhattan. Like, why would you ever sell it? Like you wouldn't buy a building in Manhattan and then turn around and sell it. No, you'd pass it on to your kids, and then they would pass it on to their kids and forever. So you never sell your Bitcoin. You buy it. It's digital real estate in cyberspace is the way that he explains it. And the way that he explains that you would get rich off of it is like what rich people do is you don't sell your Bitcoin, you go to the bank and you take a loan out against it. And then you just refinance the loan and you keep refinancing the loan and you keep, and you hold on to the asset, but you also have liquid cash, which from what I understand, again, not financial advice, I believe that a loan
can't be taxed.
Yeah.
So that's why rich people stay rich and they don't pay taxes because they own assets and then they take loans. Allegedly.
Oh, cryptocurrency is for sure here to stay.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be, I mean, I have no speculations on this, but I think it's going to keep integrating in our society more and more.
I agree. I think 10 years ago, or Bitcoin, I think came out in like 2010, Satoshi's white paper. When Bitcoin came out, I think it was just kind of this thing like, is it going to work? And here we are. And now it's a topic for politicians that want to get elected because they understand that that's such a strong community. It's now you have nation states now considering it for national reserve currency. So I think what a lot of people say, it's now a tradable ETF, spot ETF on Wall Street, right? BlackRock's behind Bitcoin now. So, I think BlackRock has $10 trillion under asset management. And, if they're investing in Bitcoin, look, if they're like we were talking earlier, like take money advice from money people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like if you see BlackRock, $10 trillion under asset management, assets under management. And you're thinking like, maybe they know something. Like I'm just a fucking cook. Right. At the end of the day, I'm just a cook. If they're doing it, like I'm gonna move how they move, right?
Yeah. I wonder how much Nancy Pelosi has.
Have you seen her stock picker? Right, like her stock picker is great. I wish I had followed her stock picks, but I never did. I always think, I'm like always kicking myself.
Yeah.
You know what? I did get caught up in the GameStop thing not too long ago with Roaring Kitty.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And the resurgence of it again.
Yeah, I lost a whole bunch of money. I was like, shit, what the fuck? I was like, I should jump in. I jumped in and the fucking price crashed.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I have a couple just for memes.
Yeah.
Just a couple stocks of GameStop. I'll probably never sell.
GameStop. Yeah, I mean, hodl forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I love Bitcoin. My only underlying fear of it is like everything like shit hits the fan. We get hit with an EMP. Like everything goes dark. Like what happens? Like that's just my underlying fear with it.
Someone said, again, I'm just regurgitating information that I've heard, right? I haven't fully vetted this information if it's correct or not. But someone said you could unplug Bitcoin for 100 years and then when you plug it back in, it's there. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But again, someone much smarter than me that understands Bitcoin said, yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
But I mean, I would be more worried about the EMP. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, we get hit with an EMP. Like, oh, fuck, where's my Bitcoin? It's like, no, fuck, who's going to eat me?
Yeah.
Where's my sex robot? Is my sex robot going to kill me? That's what I'd be worried about. Yeah, fuck. Anyway.
So, Andre, let's finish with this. If there's one piece of advice you give our listeners to start within the next 24 hours, what would that be?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, I got one. Piece of advice within the next week. You can start this right now. Pay attention to your self-talk, the things that you say to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Say nice things to yourself. Stop calling yourself an idiot, right? So I would say that's an easy thing that you could do today is just be nice to yourself. If you could be nice to yourself, that's like step one in correcting all these other things. Like there's 20 other steps after that, but it starts with you know what? Don't call yourself an idiot. Don't say you're stupid. Don't say you're poor. Don't say you're lazy, right? Because when you speak it, I think eventually you will manifest that into reality, right? So understand, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, you're constantly being programmed, and you're also programming yourself. So become friends with the programmer.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Andre, good seeing you again, brother.
Yeah,
Thanks for
you
coming
too,
by.
man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's always good to see you all.